Welcome, my soot-smudged scholars of the wild and mildly unhinged patriots of preparedness. Today, we're settling an age-old debate that no one asked for, and yet somehow everyone thinks they've already won. It's the triple threat throwdown: Bushcrafter versus Survivalist versus Prepper, 3 lifestyles, 3 philosophies, and about 17 different ways to die holding a stick. The Bushcrafter worships the forest and probably names his tools. The Survivalist thinks calories are for the weak and carries enough steel to rebuild a shed. And the Prepper? Well, he's got beans buried in 5 counties and a laminated copy of the Constitution in his go bag. Each one swears their way is the only way, and you know, in the right light, they're all kind of right. But this isn't a debate. This is a competition. 19 brutal, ridiculous, occasionally gastrointestinal survival challenges. Real scenarios, real gear, real weird. Let's see who burns out, who breaks down, and who walks away slightly undercooked but still breathing. 1. Fire starting. The Bushcrafter kneels in reverence, twirling a bow drill like it's a holy relic, mumbling to the gods of friction while slowly shaving away his remaining dignity and, bits of his thumb. His fire finally sparks after an hour of whispered curses and cedar shavings, and it's beautiful, until a breeze kills it like a bad idea. The Survivalist, meanwhile, snaps out a ferro rod like he's lighting a signal flare for dominance, cotton ball already prepped with Vaseline and vengeance. In 3 minutes, he's got flames and a lecture about the triangle of combustion. The Prepper fumbles with his high-end windproof lighter, which, doesn't work in the wind. Then he remembers, the tactical arc plasma lighter tucked in the side pocket of his tactical pants, which he ignites triumphantly, just in time to burn his own tarp. Winner, Bushcrafter, because sometimes suffering really is spiritual. 2. Shelter building. The Bushcrafter harvests saplings and builds a lean-to so intricate it looks like a woodland Airbnb for anxious squirrels. It's waterproof, windproof, and emotionally supportive. But it took 5 hours, a pulled hamstring, and he now smells like wet moss and quiet regret. The Survivalist slaps together a tarp shelter using paracord, rage, and something called a ridge line, muttering tactical jargon like he's casting spells. And it holds. It's ugly, but it holds. The Prepper unrolls his ultralight pop-up tent with side vents and reflective insulation, and it collapses mid-setup like a dying star of consumer optimism. So he pivots, covers himself with a mylar blanket, and builds a windbreak out of pre-cut foam panels. Winner, Survivalist. Because when the rain hits, function wins over philosophy and failed Kickstarter tech. 3. Water procurement. The Bushcrafter finds a natural spring, blesses it like a pagan priest, and purifies it using charcoal, boiled nettles, and something called vibes. It's earthy, it's ancient, and it may cause mild hallucinations. The Survivalist pulls out a Sawyer filter, a stainless steel canteen, and iodine tabs that smell like hospital trauma. He treats, filters, and retreats the water while citing CDC waterborne illness stats from memory, then drinks with the grim satisfaction of a man who's tasted nothing but bleach and resolve since 2003. The Prepper, well, he packed water, a lot of it, but left the jugs in his bunker, so now, he's funneling rainwater into a hydration bladder using a folded MRE box and a prayer. Winner, Prepper, because despite everything, he didn't have to drink moss soup or chemical sadness. 4. Navigation. The Bushcrafter reads the moss, the stars, and possibly the secret language of ants. He follows a deer trail into nowhere, gets a little lost, but stumbles upon a hidden grove with edible mushrooms and an inexplicably content coyote. He calls this a successful detour and eats lunch under a tree that might be judging him. The Survivalist unfolds a topo map, aligns his compass, and sets off with military precision, only to be blocked by a creek he didn't account for. He reroutes, yells at the sky, and arrives at camp furious but on time. The Prepper opens a laminated map he printed last week, triangulates with GPS, and walks directly into a no trespassing sign guarded by a teenage dirt bike gang. He negotiates passage with a Snickers bar and walks away intact, if slightly rattled. Winner, Prepper, because strategic bribery and over-planning finally paid off. 5. Cooking challenge. The Bushcrafter roasts cattail roots over coals, adds wild garlic, and serves it in a carved wooden bowl he whittled while humming to himself in minor keys. It tastes like swampy defiance, but it's warm, it's weirdly nourishing, and it didn't come out of a pouch. The Survivalist boils instant rice, canned meat, and Tabasco into a tactical slurry he insists is optimal for muscle recovery. It smells like loneliness and sodium, but it works. The prepper rehydrates freeze-dried jambalaya, carefully following instructions, then eats while reading the label out loud. Ingredients, shelf life, calorie count, just in case we forgot, it's crisis ready. Winner. Bushcrafter, because he may be starving, but at least he's starving artfully. 6. First aid. The Bushcrafter treats wounds with plantain leaves, spider webs, and a distant herbal sort of optimism. He wraps a twisted ankle with pine bark and recites a chant he may have invented on the spot. The Survivalist slaps on a combat tourniquet, applies antiseptic like he's trying to erase the memory of pain itself, and then duct tapes it all together with the same passion he brings to conspiracy theories. The prepper, he's got a trauma kit that could resuscitate a walrus, but he faints at the sight of blood and misreads the dosage on his own ibuprofen. Winner. Survivalist. Not graceful, but efficient. 7. Signaling for help. The Bushcrafter lights a smoky fire in a clearing, lays down logs in the shape of an abstract SOS, and then contemplates whether asking for help is a betrayal of the forest. The Survivalist uses a mirror, whistle, LED beacon, and flares in Morse code just to let the birds know he's fine. Meanwhile, the prepper builds a signal tower out of reflective emergency blankets and tactical hubris, then realizes there's no one out there because, in his mind, everyone else is already dead. Winner. Bushcrafter. Poetic desperation trumps tactical overkill. 8. Food procurement. The Bushcrafter sets snares made of dental floss and sheer hope, finds wild greens, and roasts beetles like they're tapas. The Survivalist goes fishing with paracord and pocket lint, then grills his catch while explaining omega-3s. The prepper opens another MRE, labeled chicken chunks with textured protein gravy, and chews like a man trying not to taste his future. Winner. Survivalist. Edible, fast, and full of protein, even if the fish stares back. 9. Weather awareness. The Bushcrafter smells rain in the moss and reads cloud patterns like scripture. He builds windbreaks based on tree language and the gut feeling you get right before lightning strikes. The Survivalist checks his barometer, reviews wind speed, and plots his shelter with scientific precision, all while complaining about humidity. The prepper, confident in his weather app until the signal dies, wraps everything in Mylar, swears the forecast said partly cloudy, and ends up soaked in irony. Winner. Bushcrafter, because nature respects poetry more than data plans. 10. Tool use. The Bushcrafter's axe is worn to a holy shine. He carves, cuts, and crafts like a monk doing penance with steel. The Survivalist dual wields knives like a wilderness gladiator, opening cans, branches, and egos alike. The prepper has 17 tools in one, none of which he knows how to use without the manual, which, is laminated and missing. Winner. Bushcrafter. His blade may be dull, but his hands are scripture. 11. Mental fortitude. The Bushcrafter finds meaning in struggle, sips pine needle tea, and tells himself pain is a lesson. He may be slowly unraveling, but it's an unraveling with dignity. The Survivalist suppresses emotions like a Marine at a funeral, pushing forward on caffeine and sheer spite. The prepper watches his gear fail one piece at a time and begins narrating his breakdown like a podcast. Winner. Bushcrafter. Madness with a melody beats repression and fear spirals. 12. Stealth and concealment. The Bushcrafter becomes one with the brush, vanishing into the undergrowth like a whispered apology. He leaves no trace, no scent, no sound, only questions. The Survivalist camouflages himself with face paint and ambition but keeps yelling Tango Bravo at squirrels. The prepper zips into his bivy sack in full view of the trail and assumes Mylar is basically invisible. Winner. Bushcrafter. Because being unnoticed is an art, not an Amazon purchase. 13th threat assessment. The Bushcrafter notices tracks, broken branches, and the unsettling silence before something bad happens. He trusts his gut. even when it's wrong. The survivalist scans constantly, notes escape routes, and assigns threat levels to raccoons, trees, and his own shadow. The prepper, meanwhile, is convinced the greatest threat is you, and has labeled everyone around him as potential looter. Winner. Survivalist. Paranoia is exhausting, but sometimes accurate. 14. Group dynamics. The bushcrafter speaks in quiet parables and shares firewood like he's offering absolution. He's respected, though no one's sure why. The survivalist tries to lead, barks orders, and nearly starts a fistfight over knot techniques. The prepper hoards supplies, builds an imaginary perimeter, and insists everyone take a loyalty oath before touching his beef jerky. Winner. Bushcrafter, because gentle leadership and mysterious vibes beat tyranny and hoarding. 15th gear, maintenance. The bushcrafter oils his blade nightly and patches gear with twine, sap, and maybe some of his own hair. It's ugly but functional. The survivalist strips and cleans every tool like he's prepping for war. His gear gleams, but his hands are raw. The prepper unboxes new gear weekly, tests nothing, and stores it in labeled crates until it's needed, which is, too late. Winner, survivalist. Obsessive care wins when chaos strikes. 16. Foraging knowledge. The bushcrafter eats wild berries, roots, and bitter leaves that taste like regret and enlightenment. He knows what's edible, medicinal, or psychoactive, sometimes intentionally. The survivalist consults a laminated edible plants chart and double-checks every mushroom like it's plotting against him. The prepper packed vitamins and avoids wild food because the internet said it's risky. Winner, bushcrafter, because lived experience beats research avoidance. 17. Waste management. The bushcrafter digs a cat hole with reverence, buries it like a sacred offering, and disappears the evidence with Zen precision. The survivalist constructs a crude latrine with logs, angles, and unnecessary complexity, then draws a perimeter around it. The prepper refuses to go outside at all, uses wag bags, and packs them out like a proud but haunted postal worker. Winner, prepper, gross, but undeniably responsible. 18. Moral philosophy. The bushcrafter believes nature is indifferent, but kindness matters. He shares what little he has and contemplates the ethics of trapping squirrels. The survivalist believes in strength, control, and winning, even against the weather. Morality is, optional if the mission fails. The prepper has a rigid code of rules, alliances, and acceptable loss, all laminated and color-coded. Winner, bushcrafter. Because when the end comes, you'd rather stand next to the guy who still says, thank you. 19th. Endgame Planning. The bushcrafter has no plan beyond tonight's shelter and tomorrow's sunrise. He lives by instinct and fading firelight. The survivalist has a strategy, fallback points, and a detailed timeline for when to start eating the dog. The prepper has a 30-year supply of food, a radio bunker, and a spreadsheet named Post-Collapse Government Structure. Winner, prepper, because sometimes spreadsheets beat storytelling. And there it is, 19 trials of mud, fire, paranoia, and protein. The bushcrafter carved beauty from chaos. The survivalist barked orders at the trees and got results. And the prepper, well, he survived mostly by not participating unless he had a manual and 3 redundancies. No one won. Not really. That's the thing about survival. It doesn't hand out trophies. It just lets you wake up sore, hungry, and slightly more unhinged than yesterday. So maybe it's not about who's best with a knife or who packed the most beans. Maybe it's about who adapts when the plan collapses, who laughs at the storm, who keeps walking when the map turns blank. This is the wild, baby. The rules are made up, the firewood's wet, and if you're lucky, all you lose is your pride. I hope your road is a good one, and if you're homeless, I hope it doesn't suck for you. Take care.